Next, you want to pull out the DVD drive. It'll lift right out. There are these two cables that are plugged into the motherboard. Those will pull right off, like so. Next, you want to remove the fan shroud. You simply stick a screwdriver in here to the slot. Pops right out. Next, you want to remove the fan. First, you start by unplugging the plug right here. You just push on the clip and pull it out. Then you want to use your thumbs to push up on this metal flap here and pry the fan out. Next, you want to remove the power button and / wireless controller board. Just pop this little clip off here, this cover, because there's a hidden screw down there. Now, for this, we need our T8 Torx driver, so I'm going to get my T8 driver and remove these 3 screws. And it just pops right off. Next step, go ahead and flip your chassis over. You'll see 8 black heat sink screws. These hold the heat, or connect to the heat sinks. Take your T8 driver and just remove those screws. Now these screws are the same kind that when you removed your power button board, so if you get them mixed up, it's okay. Now once you have all the heatsink screws removed, you want to take your T10 Torx driver and remove the remaining circuit board screws that are around the perimeter of the chassis. And once you have those screws out, your board is no longer connected to your chassis. So try to get your hand underneath on the board to hold it in place. Flip over your chassis, and the board should lift right out. The best way is probably to hold the GPU heatsink and just pull it right out like so. Now for this step, you turn the board over and you want to balance it on your CPU heatsink like so. This is kind of a tricky part. And you see we have our S-clamps here, and they are connected to the studs that are poking through from the heat sinks. Now I take a small screwdriver and just pry these up off of the studs. This is kind of difficult, and you got to be careful that you don't damage your circuit board. You just kind of work it up off of there, up off of the stud, and once you get 2 of them off of there that are side by side, this is a rather difficult step. And yeah, the rest of them should just come right off. Now with the clamps removed, the heat sinks just come right off. Now use your pliers, or if you want to use a crescent wrench, that'll work just fine too, or even a 1/4 inch nut driver. just remove the studs from both heat sinks.
Twice.
Once you loosen them up, they'll come right out. Alright, for our next step, we are going to clean the processor dies. I use Q-tips and alcohol. In extreme cases you can use Goo Gone, but I do not recommend it. If you do use Goo Gone, make sure that you clean off all the residue. So I just go ahead and use the dry part to get a dry Q-tip to get most of the thermal paste off before I use the alcohol. You're going to have to use multiple Q-tips. And once you have the majority of the thermal paste removed from the processor dies, you go ahead and soak your Q-tip with alcohol. I don't pour the alcohol on the processor. I just get the Q-tip soaked with alcohol and rub it on there. And make sure that you get your processor dies nice and shiny so you can see your reflection in them. Oops. And don't be shy with the alcohol, it will evaporate. And go ahead and apply it on there. Try to get any excess off around. Anywhere where you see any kind of residue, try to clean it off, get it as clean as possible. You also want to clean the heat sinks off pretty good. Again, the same method. First you just do it dry to get all the gunk off of it. And then once you get most of the dry part off, then you just use some alcohol to get the remaining residue off. Might take some elbow grease here to get this all nice and clean. I need to scrape some off your fingernail, but it should be nice and shiny when you're all done. Make sure you clean off both heat sinks.